Episode, we're going to be talking all about victimization in healthcare, how to spot the difference between being victimized by your provider or because of a medical condition or experience and a victim spirit. So I'm going to be diving into how to notice the difference, because there really is a difference between having a very horrible either medical diagnosis or medical experience and partnering with a victim spirit. But it's really important to understand the difference and how it might be operating in your life and actually keeping you from receiving the help that you need when it becomes available to you. Let's dive right into what is a victim spirit. So, a victim spirit is different than just victim thinking, although they do kind of tend to overlap each other a bit. So, a victim spirit really comes from being truly victimized in some way. So, every person that I have ever worked with that has come under the influence of a victim spirit has truly been victimized in some way. In some way, shape, or form, they have been unprotected, they have not felt safe, they have not felt valued, they have been exploited in some way, they've been bullied, they have lacked nurturing in some major key milestones or elements of their life, and that has essentially or effectively opened the door to a victim spirit. Now, when we're looking at this and kind of diving in deep to it, the victim spirit really comes through, like I said, that trauma or victimization. And really, when somebody partners with it, they don't know that they've partnered with it for the most part. I would say the majority of people that I've worked with don't actually know that they've partnered with a victim spirit. Speaking, when we see somebody that has come under the influence of a victim spirit, really what they're trying to do is actually get their needs met, but they've just found that they don't know how to be powerful in getting those needs met. So they end up partnering with that powerlessness, the victim spirit, that leads to really trying to gain control back of their life in the areas that they felt like they lost that control. So some areas that we typically kind of see this creep in are areas of injustice. If, there's been a loss of finances, stolen finances, we are talking about all forms of abuse and neglect, even dishonor. So like having a position taken from you that belonged to you, or having medical treatment denied from you that you knew was rightfully yours and legally yours. That can all kind of become a rich breeding ground for where the victim spirit comes in and then tries to create a dynamic where now you're starting to believe that you are actually a victim. Believing like a victim sound like? What does that feel like in your mind, in your head, in your thoughts? What that tends to look like, it looks very similar, I would say, to a spirit of rejection. And I would say that those those are like misery loves company, right? They're BFFs. They typically come together. But victim thinking, when you think about it, is there's no point in calling the insurance company because I know I'm not going to get help this time. There's no point in reaching out to grants or services because I know that they're not going to give us the help that we need. Why even bother trying? That's typically what it looks like. Or it becomes a form of self-protection where in relationships where we've been hurt, in finances where we've been hurt, that we never actually branch out to grow in the area that we need to grow and heal in because it feels too scary. And so really the victim spirit, the protection, the false protection that it tries to provide the victim or the person who has been victimized, is really a false sense of safety. So if you think all the way at the very beginning of our development, we are really wired to seek out somebody else as our source of initial comfort. We know this in psychological terms as really the beginning of mirroring, where where we see mom come in and soothe us, and that becomes our internal sense of I am okay. Now, if we've been victimized in some way, whether that be a complete lack of nurturing, or we'll just say in my instance, where a lot of my feelings were disregarded over a really long period of time, where I began to doubt myself, my own experiences, my own emotions. And not only that, but when I would reach out for comfort, I was blamed or shamed or what have you. My sense of emotional safety was completely upside down and backwards. And so I had no grid for knowing even how to create a sense of safety for myself. And so that victim spirit, that victim thinking protects you, or provides that false sense of protection, so that you don't have to take the risk of being rejected or hurt or abused or neglected or yada yada ever again. Now, I would say that the victim spirit kind of exists along a spectrum as far as how it's going to impact a person's life. And it can become a way of how people get their needs met. Maybe the person who has accidentally or unknowingly partnered with this spirit suddenly begins to recognize that when when things are going bad, all of a sudden they're getting a lot of attention and sympathy and empathy and help and support. And so they've internalized this belief that people will only pay attention to me if I behave this way, or if I am super needy, or if I am yada yada. When so that becomes their tool of, this is how I can overcome my feeling of powerlessness. And really, it's a grasping at straws or an attempt to gain control back, because they feel so out of control, and they feel like I can never become a powerful person and actually speak up for what I need. And so therefore, this is going to be the way that I get my needs met. And that, of course, always leads to either powerlessness or control. Okay, so a sense of internal powerlessness, or partnering with control, which is, I'm going to control you, I'm going to manipulate you into doing what I want so that I can develop that internal sense of safety. And, when we're looking at a powerless pattern, what that typically looks like is not advocating for yourself, not communicating your needs, and then projecting your pain onto other people. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is not just from like an emotional health, spiritual health standpoint. Both of those things, that powerlessness, that victim spirit, will prevent us from having really healthy relationships, not only with the Godhead, but with, everybody that we're in relationship with. It will prevent us from developing a healthy team culture. It will prevent us from raising healthy children. It's a big deal. But I actually also wanted to talk about this from a medical perspective, because